So welcome back to the channel, and today is my preview of the 2020 season for the Las Vegas Raiders. A new name change, a new future for the Las Vegas Raiders. Who knows, we'll have to wait and see how it plays out, but make sure to like and subscribe for more content. I've got a lot more coming over the next few weeks. Uploads are every 2 to 3 days. I hope you enjoy. So the 2019 season saw the Raiders finish 7-9. They were third in the AFC West in 2019, and it was Gruden's second season. It was much better than his first one in 2018, where they finished 4-12. That's pretty awful. But Josh Jacobs was definitely the best player to come out of the season. He had 1,300 all-purpose yards, and as I mentioned, massive improvement from 2018. And we'll see how they get on in 2020. So looking towards the schedule, and it's the 12th easiest in the NFL. Their hardest games come against the Broncos and Chiefs, home and away, being divisional rivals, but then they also host the Bills and the Saints, and they go on the road to the Patriots. So not too hard a schedule, but fairly testing. So looking towards the roster side of things, Derek Carr has been a very good quarterback in the last few years, but he hasn't really set the world alight. He's made 3 Pro Bowls, but he's not really ever been up there in the last few seasons in the MVP talks or some of the in the best QB in the league talks. He's passed for 4,000 yards in his last 2 seasons respectively. He's always maintained a fairly good touchdown to interception ratio. In the last 2 years, he's had 40 touchdowns to 18 interceptions. So his ball security on the whole is pretty good. And he's these 3 Pro Bowls that he's made hasn't been with amazing weapons around him. It's kind of off his own back. But considering that he's passed for 4,000 yards in the last 2 seasons, that is especially impressive when you consider that the Raiders are a fairly run-heavy team, and they've got lots of different packages set up to run inside, outside, and passing the ball is kind of a second thought for them. But another quarterback coming in for 2020, Marcus Mariota, signed from the Tennessee Titans. We don't know what kind of capacity that he's coming in 2020 to be a quality backup or to provide some real stiff competition for Derek Carr. We don't know yet, but either way, 2 really good quarterbacks heading into 2020. So I've just touched on Josh Jacobs, but the running backs are very good for the Raiders in 2020. Josh Jacobs was amazing for them last year, as I mentioned, the standout by far, and they'll hope that Josh Jacobs can reproduce last year's form. And then you've also got Jalen Richards sat behind him, who's a capable backup. He had almost 500 all-purpose yards in 2019. So with these two, I imagine they'll look to run sides into the ground again in 2020. So the pass catchers look better than anything Derek Carr has had to work with the last few years with the Raiders organisation. You've got Tyrell Williams bringing speed and physicality. Henry Ruggs brings absolute breakneck speed. And you've got Hunter Renfrow, who's a really, really good slot receiver, really great route running. And that's without even mentioning Zay Jones and Nelson Aguilar. So Derek Carr's going to be really happy to be provided with so many good options at wide receiver. And then when you think about the tight ends, which are so crucial in a Jon Gruden offense, with a lot of 2 tight end sets. You've got Darren Waller. He is definitely one of the most underrated tight ends in the league. Over 1,100 receiving yards in 2019, and then they've just brought in Jason Witten as well, the Cowboys veteran who's been in the league for years and years now. So he's a really good addition, and the pass catchers look really good for 2020. So let me know now, who do you think will be the best player on the Raiders offense for 2020? Go and let me know now in the comments. So to be quite frank, the defense in 2019 was quite disappointing for the Raiders. They spent a lot of draft capital, a lot of cap space on the defensive side of the ball. So Clelin Ferrell, the number 4 pick overall in the draft, only contributed 4.5 sacks. Jonathan Abram, their other first-round pick, was injured from really early on in the season, so we didn't really get to see any of him. So it's going to be really interesting in 2020 to see how these 2 players come back and perform. So on the front 4, Max Crosby will definitely be looking to reproduce his 2019 form. He had 10 sacks last year, and Jonathan Hankins will want to be better at the defensive tackle position. He didn't contribute an awful lot. They brought in Malik Collins, the defensive tackle from the Cowboys. He has been very good the last few years for them, so I think this is a really good, astute pickup. So they'll hope that they can really improve this front 4. So actually looking towards the run defense, they weren't that bad. They had the 6th lowest number of rushing yards per game allowed, but they had the 3rd least sacks of the defense in 2019. So this pass rush is definitely going to have to improve, but their rushing defense was actually really, really quite good. So looking towards the linebackers, and they are a pretty new prospect for 2020. You've only got 1 player staying, so you've got Nicholas Morrow staying. He had 70 tackles in 8 starts in 2019, but then they've brought in Nick Kwiatkowski and Corey Littleton from the Bears and Rams respectively. So we'll have to wait and see how those got on, because we've never seen them play together before. But it's really the secondary that needs the most improvement heading into 2020. 2020. They were ranked the 4th worst secondary by PFF in the 2019 season, but they have spent a lot of draft capital, a lot of cap space towards the secondary for 2020. They brought in Demarius Randolph from the Browns, Jeff Heath from the Cowboys, Prince Amukamara from the Bears, and this already adds to LaMarcus Joyner and Jonathan Abram, who are quality players when they're both fit. So if the Raiders have any aspirations in 2020, it kind of all hinges on the defense, and especially the secondary, whether they can limit the opposition offense's time on the field and make sure that Derek Carr or Marcus Mariota, whoever's under centre, spends more time on the field than the opposition quarterback. So let me know now in the comments which player on the secondary will make the biggest difference for the Raiders in 2020. So heading towards the transactions for the Raiders in the 2020 offseason and the draft. Henry Ruggs was the Raiders' first pick in the draft. I think that was a good decision. He really complements the other 2 starting receivers well. He ensures that the defenses will need to respect that deep threat in 2020. You know, they're going to have to back up further than they would against other teams, for example, because he can just absolutely burn defenders for fun. Then their next pick was on Damon Arnett from Ohio State, the cornerback. I think this was slightly surprising. The Raiders had already spent quite a lot of money in free agency on the secondary, but I suppose it's another player to add to the mix, compete for one of the starting cornerback positions, and strength in depth is never something to turn your nose up at. So, you know, we'll see how he does. And then the other pick that I really liked from the Raiders in the 2020 draft was Tanner Muse. He can play as a safety, sometimes as a linebacker. He's kind of in the mould of Isaiah Simmons, someone else that has come from Clemson, and he can do so many things on a football field and cover so much ground in a short amount of time, and he's a really versatile player, so I do like this pick from the Raiders. So just quickly looking at some of the players that have come in and out in free agency, the players that they've got leaving, they've got the linebacker Tahir Whitehead, who's actually been pretty good, safety Carl Joseph, then Benson Mayowa had the 2nd highest amount of sacks for the Raiders in 2019, and then you've got the 2 backup quarterbacks, Nathan Peterman and Mike Glennon, so they're heading out. But then coming in free agency, you've got Marcus Mariota, who was the starter for the Titans last year, Jeff Heath, Amukamara, Randall, and then you've got Aguilar at wide receiver, Jason Witten, and then Littleton and Kwiatkowski, as I've already mentioned. So I think a similar year is on the cards for the Raiders this year. I think the AFC West looks particularly tough heading into the 2020 season. The Chiefs are coming off their Super Bowl win, and the other 2 teams are strengthening a lot as well. So I'm going to say the Raiders have a floor of 5-11 for the 2020 season. If things don't work out and they can't defend the run as well as last year, and you know their other things don't improve, like their amount of sacks in their secondary, then they really could find themselves in this situation with only 5 wins or so. But if they kind of get it all clicking together, that secondary performs as well as it should do on paper, they can really get to the quarterback in 2020 and get some more sacks. I'd set their ceiling as 10-6. I don't think they're gonna completely set the world alight, but I think they could push for a wild card playoff spot. Especially if they pick up some gritty wins at home to the Bills and Saints, for example. So let me know, have I been too harsh on the Las Vegas Raiders? Do you think that they're going to do better than I said? Do you think that I've been fairly accurate? What record do you think the Las Vegas Raiders are going to finish in 2020? Let me know now in the comments. So thanks for watching my preview on the Las Vegas Raiders. Make sure to like and subscribe for more content. As I said, I've got a lot more coming out over the next few weeks. I hope you enjoy the video. I'll see you in the next one.